Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. Podcasting since 2005.
Check it out.
You're listening to Gamertag Radio.
Back on the scene.
With your host, podcaster Hall of Famer Danny Pena, the always opinionated Parris Lilly, and from outside of the norm, Peter Toledo. This is Gamertag Radio.
Here we go.
Man, I'm loving this intro. This intro is dope. We're getting a lot of listeners hitting us up saying that they're loving it too. Welcome. You're listening to Gamertag Radio episode 564. This is your host, Danny, a.k.a. Godfrey, and also joining us this week, co-host Parris. Parris, what's going on, man?
I just got opinions all the time. That's what the intro says, so I guess I'm doing all right.
And what is it about Pete?
I don't know, a-hole or something. I don't know.
Oh, no. Shout out to Pete. He's going to be joining us the next episode coming out this Monday and stuff. So, but yeah, man, this week we have a special interview. We have Ryan McCaffrey from IGN. He's going to be joining us this week. And, man, a lot of great conversations about Xbox, about his career, and a lot of cool stuff. And also, we definitely talked about E3 that's coming up very soon, a couple of weeks from now. So what are your thoughts of the interview before I start playing it, Parris?
I thought it was a lot of fun because, like I even said to him, it's been the damnedest thing. I've seen him at so many different events over the years, and every time I'm like, oh, Ryan McCaffrey, let me go introduce myself. Every time I go over, poof, he get in the DeLorean, hit 88 miles per hour, gone. I'll never see him.
Yeah.
So it was good to finally get a chance to talk to him and just ask him some of the questions I've always wanted to ask him. But like you said, it was a great conversation. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely, man. So before we play this interview, head over to gamertagradio.com or play.it/gamertag. Listen to our past episodes and also share with your friends. And also, if you don't want to listen through the website, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and other podcast directories. Also, email us, fanmail@gamertagradio.com. You could also send us regular email, voicemail, everything. Send it through there. Record it from your device, your phone, computer, and send the MP3 or WAV to our email. Give us a call, 786-273-7GTR. That's 786-273-7GTR.
And I know we weren't going to talk about this, but we got to talk about this because I forget Pete. I can't wait for Pete. I got to bring this up now. I think I'm done with Call of Duty. That trailer, I'm like, it was just, I was numb. I was numb through that whole reveal. I don't think I care about Call of Duty anymore.
Yeah, I was looking at it. I was like, man, maybe they're going to, it's Infinity Ward. It's been a couple of years. I watched it. Wow, they're in space. I mean, what's the big deal? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still curious to talk to the developers during E3 and everything like that. You just sit down and talk. Because the thing is, there's listeners that they love the game. I think they would love for us to have Infinity Ward on our show to talk about the game and stuff. But personally, for me, I just don't see myself buying this game at all.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I say I'm just numb to it because look, I have the utmost respect for Call of Duty multiplayer as an esport. It is a thriving thing. It's an event. I went to one in LA last year. It was an amazing experience. At this, just cut the story. Just why even do it? Just make a multiplayer game every year and just have the esport and people can play with their buddies and be done. Because I feel like they need to take a break with the Call of Duty story and to just rub salt into the wound was the fact that they're adding on the Modern Warfare remake to it as well, the remaster or whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. And that brought back all the memories of how hyped I used to be about Modern Warfare and like even going into Modern Warfare 2. I loved, Soap and, the Captain and all that stuff. And it's like, where is this now? I don't know. I don't even know what's going on anymore. I read
online that that Activision they don't have no plans to sell this game separately.
Oh no, yeah, I know.
You have to buy the bundle in order to get this
next
game.
year. You have to wait till next year to get
next year. Yeah, but here's the thing. That's not a bad. I mean, it's not a bad price for what $69.99 or $79.99 something.
No,
like that.
Yeah, it's $80. I don't know.
I mean, look, if you're a fan of the game and you're a fan of the first one, might as well just get it. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. For that price, Parris, there's people that buy games for that price just for the DLC and expansion and all that stuff. This one at least has 2 games and into one. And the multiplayer wise is going to be big too,
Don't get me wrong. If you're a Call of Duty fan and you're hardcore into that, $80 for that is a no-brainer. Just do it and get it and have fun. I personally would love the remaster. Not so much with the new game. So I'll be sitting on the sidelines waiting for this one.
You talk about campaign because we haven't seen anything of the multiplayer.
Look, and here's the thing. They always do the multiplayer reveal after E3. And look, it's going to be fun. I'm not talking about the multiplayer now. I'm just talking about the campaign. And then I should throw in the fact that DICE is taking shots at them on Twitter about with those 2010 graphics and wait till you see Battlefield 5, which I'm sure. Okay, I got it right here. So DICE, they're tweeting out there and just a couple of them. He's like, today I watched the new Call of Duty trailer. How quaint. Those cute little free cam shots, precious 2010 graphics and grade school editing. Quaint. And he does the crying, laughing emoji. And then another one, he's like, what can I say? I did not like the look of it. Ugly use of DOF lighting, dull, but all in all, not a bad looking game. Come Friday, the internet will melt.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. And look, I'm very interested to see. But look, Battlefield ain't like Battlefield got no great campaign either. It's really going to come down to what they're going to do on the multiplayer too. It's the same thing for both. Really.
I mean, there's one that he wrote. Wait, let me see if I have it here. This is from the person behind the review trailer that also slammed the game. Looks like a game from 10 years ago. Do you agree with that, Parris? Or not?
I don't
agree with that. I don't agree with that.
Let's see what Battlefield looks like when it comes out. Now, I'm guessing because obviously we've seen Battlefront and we know how great that looks on consoles and it looks amazing on the PC. So we know it's using the same engine. So I'm expecting something similar to Battlefront.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Now, before we go to this interview, let's take a word from our sponsors real quick and let's talk about Sherry's Berries. Fellas, Mother's Day is here. It is this weekend. It's coming. It is time. You need to hook up your wife, your mama, your grandma, your auntie, your baby's mama. You got to hook them all up, okay? So right now, get Sherry's Berries, freshly dipped strawberries starting at $19.99 plus shipping or double the berries for just $10 more. This is an exclusive offer for GTR listeners. Go to berries.com, click on that microphone in the top right corner and type in our code GTR. Here's the only way to get this amazing deal. Freshly dipped strawberries starting at $19.99 or double the berries for just $10 more. Again, use our code GTR. Visit berries.com, click on the microphone under the top right corner and type in that code GTR. Again, dude, these strawberries are amazing. Like we got a sample last week and they were devoured immediately. They're giant strawberries dipped in various types of chocolate. They're delicious. They're fresh. They're packaged. They're cold when they come in, the whole thing. It's amazing. So again, go to berries.com. Go to that microphone in the top right corner, type in our code GTR. That is at berries.com. Use our code GTR.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to play the interview with Ryan now, and we'll be right back after this.
Back on the scene.
This is Gamertag Radio. Voicemail at 786-2737-GTR.
All right, Parris, joining us this week, we have a special guest here on Gamertag Radio, Ryan McCaffrey from IGN. Ryan, welcome back. You haven't been on since 9 years ago, exactly. So
I was shooting for the 10-year anniversary, but I guess my math.
Yeah,
was
man, how's everything, man? Hear this. I was checking out one of the old episodes that you were on.
Yeah.
And the last conversation we had was about Xbox 360 already. They already have demos now we could download, and we were talking about how OXM are going to make some changes. Now we could download the games through the console instead of getting it on disc. That was our conversation.
Yeah, well, that's OXM is gone now, and I don't work there anymore. And it's 9 years is a long time.
Long time, but it was cool. Memories, man. Long time, man. Parris. Anything you want to say to Ryan?
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, Ryan, thank you for coming on the show. And this is a personal treat for me because I've been a big fan of going way back to the old OXM podcast when it was you and Dan, and I used to listen every week. And I listen to Podcast Unlock, which ironically enough is what prompted me to reach out to you on social media to see if you could come on here because you were talking about E3 and everything. So thank you for coming on. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Definitely, man. And how's it been you with the whole podcasting thing, Maggie? You've been doing this now for a while now. The whole, recording shows almost weekly and everything.
Yeah, this year was my February was my 10-year anniversary of podcasting. So,
congrats!
Yeah, I tried to add it up at one point because I did just about 300 episodes at OXM before I left there, and I'm at I don't even know how I started at 57. So I'm coming up on 200 at IGN.
Nice.
And then I do a Tesla podcast on the side, which that's already at 39. So yeah, I may not be any good, but I've got a lot of experience. That's for sure.
Nice, man. Busy guy with a whole podcast. So congrats, man. Congrats on that, man.
Yeah. None of them make me a dime, really. I just, I've clearly got my priorities out of order.
Awesome, man. But I always see you at E3 every year, especially at the Microsoft events and everything. But
well, see, I have to interrupt on that because it's so funny for me personally. Like I said, I've been a big fan of your work for years, and over the years, I've seen you at E3. I've seen you at like various Xbox events and things like that. Matter of fact, I even saw you at this last spring showcase in San Francisco. But every time I'm like, hey, I'm going to go introduce myself to Ryan. Poof, gone. I'm like, where'd he go? He's gone. It's like
he's like a ghost.
It's like you literally hopped in that DeLorean and you just disappeared. It's like, where'd he go?
Yeah. No, but Ryan, very quick, man. This E3 coming up, I think it has to be the most strangest and weirdest E3 that I've seen so far. Based on the announcements, a lot of companies are stepping out, doing their own thing now, which I know previously we've seen, Activision done that in the past. Like that, they had like their own press conference and their own event. But this one is weird. No EA, no Activision this year. Nintendo is doing something, with the whole Legend of Zelda playable. That's it. No new console. I don't know, man. What do you think about this E3 coming up, man? It's very, very strange, man.
Well, I have to respectfully disagree that this is the weirdest one because 2007 was the king of
you're right.
E3s.
You're right.
That one was in Santa Monica, and it was along the Pacific Coast Highway, a bunch of different hotels, but the actual quote unquote show floor was at the Santa Monica Airport hangar, which is this little tiny regional airport. And I remember Rock Band, would it have been 2 or maybe even 1? One of the rock bands was in there, and
I think it was the first. Was it the first one?
It may very well have. I guess if it was 2007, it had to be the first one.
Yeah, it was the first one.
Yeah, and that was just a bizarre. And in fact, I only actually went to the quote unquote again show floor on the last day just because I thought, well, I guess I better go to the show floor to see what's up, because all my appointments and things were at hotel suites. It was very odd, but to this year, which is, I know what you want to talk about. I really see, I feel like everybody's kind of got Apple syndrome where they all go, oh, we can just do our own big event like Apple does. And for some of them, it might work. For some of them, it might not. I think next year is going to be the really telling E3, because I think after, depending on how things go this year, it's either going to go one of two ways for E3 2017. Mm-hmm. Either everybody clears out of the convention center and there is no convention center and everybody does their own little thing in and around LA or wherever, who knows. Mm-hmm. Or everybody goes, okay, we tried to do our own thing, but we didn't really get as much press or as much attention as we wanted. Let's all go back to the convention center, and it'll just go back to how it, sort of traditionally is. So I feel like it's going to go one of those two ways next year.
The reason why I say it was weird is because based on just the convention part, like that part where you were saying the whole hotel, that was kind of weird too. But I don't know. The reason why I'm saying that is because now is more companies stepping out and not having their own booth there, like more than ever now. And slowly, I think next year, like you said, is might be the big change. We might even see E3 open it to the public too. You never know.
Well,
that's
the thing. I just don't understand. Because 2007, the reason that was cited for everybody bailing out of E3 was because, as you remember, it turned into this big sort of booth war where everybody was spending more money to have a crazier booth with. I hate to use the term because I think it's just awful now, but more booth babes and more crazy TVs and things to get your attention. And then they all went, well, wait, this is nuts. Let's all just not spend this money. And that's where the whole hotel thing came from. And then when they all realized that the only time of year that the real mainstream mass media, I'm talking the CNNs, New York Times, et ceteras of the world, pay attention to the games industry is E3. And in 2007, when everybody scattered to the wind at their various Santa Monica hotel suites, none of that coverage came. None of the mainstream outlets really paid attention to the games industry, and that's why everybody went back sort of tail between their legs to the convention center, and E3 built back up to what it is today. So that's, I think, what it comes down to is that's what E3 needs to. That's what the publishers need out of E3 is that big mainstream attention.
Well, what I was going to say before was just building on top of what you mean. I understand the need for getting everyone in one place. And like you said, publishers wanting that to be the case so that they can get, the mainstream pub. But if you go back to 2007, Twitter was in its infancy. We're still on MySpace and things like that. So we didn't have the social media that we have today. And again, you guys were talking about this on Podcast Unlocked, but I tend to lean towards, do we even really need this anymore? In so much, like you said, everyone's starting to scatter out and do their own thing this year. I look at what EA's doing. I look at what Activision's doing, and it's interesting because obviously EA is like, hey, we're going to do our own EA Play thing, and we're going to have everyone come over to the Nokia Center, whatever they're calling it now, and check out our games. Where Activision took the opposite approach, and they're like, you know what? We're just going to piggyback off of the Sony or the Microsoft booths or whatever this year and do it that way. But then I look at what Square did for Final Fantasy, and that's when I had the epiphany on this. It was like they did this completely outside of E3. They did it way ahead, and literally all the media attention was on them. They leveraged social media. You could watch it on Twitch. You could watch it on YouTube, all these kind of things. And still, the IGNs, the Polygons, the Kotakus of the world, you guys picked up the news on it. You talked about the game. So they owned the news cycle for a few days. And my thinking is, why have an E3 where it's centralized anymore? Whereas, I look at the PlayStation experience, for example. If they were to move that into the summer and said, that's just going to be our thing, we're going to announce all our games here, and we will just absolutely own that news cycle for a week, the media is still going to go. They're still going to go check out these games. They're still going to talk about it. We're still going to be trending it on social media. So I do think, like you said, when we look at next E3, it's going to be very telling where people are starting to lean towards, because I'm of the opinion if Sony or Microsoft bails out of that convention center, it's done. What's the point of it anymore?
That's a great point. Yeah, you make a lot of great points, particularly about this, the social media being such a big presence now versus it not really being in 2007. And yeah, but I do still think that, you talk about owning the news cycle, and that's true to an extent, but E3 still has a reach that even all these little events do not. And for me, I know I'm not a publisher. I'm not the ESA. I don't know the financials involved and what goes into E3 from that side, but I just don't understand how E3 does not tack a couple of public days onto the back end.
Agreed.
Totally agree.
That, they can charge admission. Everybody could cover their booth costs, or at least enough of the costs to, make it worth their while without it being this crazy investment. It would still get the media attention from the front half of the week, and then you'd still get the that mainstream media attention in there as well. Gamescom has done it for years. Yep. Tokyo Game Show has done it for years. I don't understand why E3 will not have public days.
Well, even E3, I remember because I've been going since like 2001. They used to do it at the beginning of the decade. I do believe, if my memory serving me correct, like early 2000, 2001, they were doing public days. So I don't know why they got away from that. And like you said, Gamescom, what there's over 100,000 people coming through there.
Oh, you're try 300,000.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy.
God. But is it because they made those changes because a lot of publishers maybe complained, or maybe the media complained that it was too hard to get to the booth, get to the behind closed doors? Maybe that's why ESA made those changes, you think, Ryan?
I don't know. It's honestly, it's impossible for me to speculate without having spoken to anyone at the ESA, or really, I would be totally guessing, and it would really do me no good or anybody any good to guess. But I'd love to ask them. It'd be good to try and get their side of it. I mean, I'd love to find out what the ESA is thinking right now when they've had EA bailout and Activision bailout and Disney bailout. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, we had them on our podcast like a couple of months ago, and that's one of the things we asked them, and they were like, "Look, we get this every year. Every year, people are saying, even the media are saying, oh, is this going to be the last year of E3? Is it going to be the last year?" They heard this, and they learn from their mistakes and then just make changes the year after that. So I don't know. It's just it's going to be a very interesting E3, this one and the one coming up next year.
Oh, good. I hope. I mean, I'm glad to hear that takeaway of yours. I hope they do continue to always evolve and learn and make the show better. And so maybe for all we know, maybe next year they will go ahead and go, okay, let's have public days on the back end. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
what were your thoughts about last year? Because there were companies that invited their own community, like Microsoft had like 500 fans. They went inside to E3 for the first time. They got free passes and everything like that. What's your take on that?
Yeah, and if you remember too, it wasn't even just that, because you're talking about Xbox, the FanFest thing that sort of happened outside of E3. There were remember right at the last minute, the ESA said, "Oh, we're gonna give each publisher like 1,000 or something, or a few hundred passes to just hand out to people," and there were supposed to be something like 5,000 or 10,000 fans at E3 last year. And so I went into the show going, oh boy, okay, it's going to be a little tougher to get around this year. I got to plan accordingly. And what I remember from E3 last year is I actually, and this is purely subjective and anecdotal, I have no factual data or evidence to back this up, but E3 actually felt less crowded to me last year. For whatever it's worth.
I didn't get that vibe last year, but okay.
Yeah, I definitely had the opposite feeling.
There was it depends where you were walking, because I know the Xbox booth was pretty packed, really, really packed last year.
Yeah, it always is.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I want to shift gears, since again you're the host of Podcast Unlock and you talk about everything Xbox. So I got to run my crazy theory, or not my crazy theory, because I'm actually doing it. I have to run my wacky thing that I'm doing right now by you. I got rid of my Xbox One, and I got rid of it. Because I was at the spring showcase with Phil Spencer, so I know you were there and heard everything that Phil said. When he said what he said, I made up my mind right then and there. I don't need an Xbox One anymore, because I have a high-end PC. I have a PlayStation 4. If they're bringing all the games to Windows 10, why don't I just play the games on Windows 10? So I made the decision right then and there. I'm going to get rid of my Xbox One, and I'm going to ride this out for a minimum of 6 months to see if it's worth it, or if there's winds up being a game that's going to be Xbox One only that I just have to have, and then I'll circle back and potentially do it. But as it stands right now, I know they've not said no yet to Gears of War 4, but it doesn't seem like Gears of War 4 is going to come at launch. But for me, that's the only game right now that would potentially make me go back. I don't see anything necessarily on the horizon, because like Forza is obviously coming to Windows 10. I'm sure things like Cuphead, Quantum Break obviously is on Windows 10, things like that. So what do you think about that, dealing with Xbox every day? Is this the right move for them, integrating Windows 10 into this, or should they still keep kind of a separate Xbox One only games and Windows 10 games?
I don't know. I mean, it's a very interesting move. I mean, I think they're just trying to trying to make their tent bigger as quickly as possible, and they have this relatively untapped market of how many hundreds of millions of Windows users. So sort of trying to extend out to those people is certainly a smart move on paper. If we talked about it on Unlocked when it happened, I think if as long as you're playing in Microsoft's ecosystem, whether that's Windows 10 or Xbox, I don't think they care if you sell your Xbox, Parris. I think as long as if you're buying their games on their ecosystem and playing on their operating system, I think it's all the same to them. So, because you're probably still going to be buying Xbox One controllers for your PC, maybe potentially some other peripherals at some point down the road, like maybe a steering wheel for Forza or something. So, yeah, I'm not sure they really care. And yeah, I mean, Gears, you're right, has not been confirmed. I think it's pretty likely that it'll happen, but yeah, probably not at launch. I think they probably learned their lesson with Quantum Break, where I don't think anybody was. I mean, I wasn't the least bit surprised that Quantum Break was coming to Windows. I think just a lot of people were caught off guard by how late the announcement came. So I think if in the future they'll probably not wait till the last minute to make those announcements. But yeah, and really Halo is the other big one that has yet to. They of course screwed around with the Halo 2 Vista, but none of the other Halos since then have come to PC in any way. So it'll be interesting to see if Halo 6 ends up on Windows. Of course, Halo Wars 2 is. I
was going to say that.
As far as the mainline series, the shooter series, that's going to be a big litmus test to see if that goes to Windows or not.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
Take it out.
You're listening to Gamertag Radio.
There's the rumors of some type of new hardware / controller coming at E3. What are your thoughts on that?
I just need to see what it is. I mean, Sony, whether or not you like the PS4 or you're a PlayStation fan, I think even the most just strict, ardent fan of Xbox has to concede that Sony has basically made virtually every right move this generation, from their communication, from getting developers on board to messaging to their fans. Like, they've played their cards so well this generation. This whole Neo thing, this 4.5 thing, is the first time where they've kind of pissed off the hardcore segment of the community. And I don't know if Microsoft is intentionally hanging back and letting Sony test the water there, or if Microsoft really truly doesn't have a significant upgrade planned, if they're going to kind of just wait a while and go with more of a substantial upgrade. I guess it's funny. I have a pretty good PC as well, Parris. I went ahead and burned my tax return on a long overdue new PC from scratch last year. So mine's a year old now, but it's still a pretty good spec. But I still find, like, I said, okay, well, Quantum Break comes with a free Windows 10 version. I'm going to play Quantum Break on PC. And I started to, and I didn't think it looked or ran appreciably better than the Xbox version. I know, there have been a lot of complaints and issues with the PC version of Quantum Break. I actually ended up going back to my Xbox, and I just ended up playing 95% of the game on Xbox One. And that's, I guess, more of my concern is that would be my concern for you or for anybody that's considering just ditching the Xbox and going PC, is either on purpose or not, are the PC versions of these Xbox games going to get the short shrift somehow? Is the Xbox version going to continue to be the sort of the main superior version in some way? And so that's kind of what I'm curious about. And then, yeah, with new hardware, I mean, I'm always going to want the latest, greatest thing. That's just how I'm wired as a guy who does this for a living and loves games for for my whole life. So I don't know. But if they just throw a console out that's like, okay, well, it'll upscale to 4K, but it won't actually run native, and like, I don't know if I'm really going to care.
Well, yeah, we've had that discussion, talking obviously about the PlayStation Neo, and I feel like I'm in the demographic of I'm the person that they're talking to, because I have a 4K TV, I like 4K streaming and all that. So if you're going to give me a device that I can natively start having 4K content on, not necessarily gaming, because obviously these things aren't going to be powerful enough to do native 4K gaming, but if I can have my my movies and things like that in 4K, that's something that is interesting to me. So when I flip it back and I look, obviously the rumors are solidly pointing that Sony is doing this. So let's say Microsoft did not have it planned to come out this year in 2016. Can they stand pat with the Xbox One, I guess is what I'm trying to say, versus a PlayStation Neo? And we obviously know the NX is coming in March. Can they sit tight for another 18 months to 2 years and just move on to a new piece of hardware? Or do they need to answer this, within the next 12 months?
Well, I think the market's going to determine that. But I will say, there is a case to be made for Microsoft sort of just focusing their efforts entirely on the games lineup and saying, you know what, we're going to be the most affordable box. This is a perfectly capable Xbox One. It runs games mostly 1080p. They'll look fine. They'll run fine. And we have Cuphead and Inside and Crackdown 3 and Gears of War 4 and Halo Wars 2 and Sea of Thieves and Recore. And if they just decide, you know what, we're just going to, because Phil is a games guy. We know this. He's said it over and over a million times. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Phil just decides to double down on the portfolio and say, you know what, this is our box. It works fine. We can continue to drive the price down on it, whereas our competitors are effectively driving the price up with the NX and the Neo. We're going to be a $200 excellent games machine with a killer lineup, and we're going to take our chances in the market that way. I could easily see it playing out that way.
Oof. If that happens, though, I don't know. That's going to be kind of hard for them to pull that off, though, I think, for that price, though. Ryan, why you say for 200?
I'm just pulling that out of thin air. I mean,
okay.
But here's the thing: if the Neo is 400, and if the NX is say 350 or 400, then yeah, if you've got a $200 slim, probably at that point, slim design. So it's got a visual refresh. You have a new looking Xbox One for $200 that's got,
or $299. I see $299 easier and still have it cheaper than the competitors.
I mean, but the Xbox is already $299. It's got to get cheaper if at the end of the day, because that's a key part. Microsoft made a lot of mistakes. Again, I think we can, and even the most hardcore Xbox fan can admit that. And I think among the very biggest mistakes that they made was going with $500 where Sony went with $400, because and it's the same mistake Sony made last generation with the PS3 against the Xbox 360. You can bundle and value add and include free games all you want, but at the end of the day, the average consumer, the ones that are going to be buying a console in years, 3 through 7, not those guys in the first 2 years. That's us hardcore guys. But those guys that are going to grow you from the first 30 million consoles to the second 30 million consoles, those are the ones who, in my opinion, price is a huge deciding factor for them. If they see an Xbox One and they've seen like, oh, this has Halo and this has Gears and this has this Sea of Thieves game and all these other things, and it's like, wow, this thing, and it's like in this, it's a slim, it's a redesign, even though it's the same internals, and it's like, oh my god, this thing's $199, and then, okay, here's this PlayStation 4 that's saying, oh, 4K, but it's a $400 box, like that. That's a strategy I could easily see Microsoft embracing.
Now, my question too is: last year you went to the press conference, right? The E3 press conference?
I was covering it from our war room because I have to get on the air and spout my analysis after the fact. So I wasn't able to be in the room, but I was certainly watching it. Yes.
Okay. What? Okay. So you like the last year's press conference?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, here's the difference. So with Microsoft, their press conferences, especially the last 2 or 3, or the last 2 years in particular, and then the last few conferences, like when you include the Gamescom, because that's Gamescom has now become like E3 Part 2, is Microsoft they've really trimmed out all the fat. There's no Kinect stuff in there anymore. There's no media or services stuff in there anymore. It's just 90 minutes of games, the really, really solid games. So yeah, I've been very impressed with particularly last year. I thought Microsoft had a great E3 showing.
What do you think they should do for this year? To make it better than previous years, because every year I'm like, man, how they could put it off? How could they make it even better? It's going to be kind of tough. I don't know.
I mean, this is not a thing that would. Well, here's the thing. Like, Sony does a great job of engaging those super hardcore guys at their E3 conference, like the Final Fantasy VII remake. Just blew up for them, and Last Guardian. The Last Guardian's a game that, like, I would take a reasonable lunch bet that Last Guardian's not going to be one of the highest selling games in the Sony portfolio, but it's just got that hardcore appeal for all the hardcore guys. So Sony has been really good about targeting that kind of stuff in their E3 press conferences that's going to get just the biggest reactions from the crowd and on social media. Whereas Microsoft has just kind of delivered really solid just games. Nothing that's like, you notice the biggest conversation piece, the thing that everybody took away from last year's Microsoft press conference wasn't Gears, and it wasn't Sea of Thieves. I mean, Sea of Thieves was right
backwards compatibility.
That's right. You're exactly correct. Backwards compatibility, a feature, because it's just that it like hits the hardcore right square in the heart. So those are the kinds of things that I would think Microsoft is now learning really gets kind of the most reaction. I mean, so for along those lines, I'd like to see, I mean, I've harped on this a million times, just not on your show, is I want Phil to get up there and go, you know what? We've listened to you. We believe in the creativity of the indie space and of digital titles. Summer of Arcade is back, and we're going to start it this July with Cuphead, Inside, Below, and a fourth game, and from there on out, we're going to have Live Arcade's back, and we're going to have Live Arcade Wednesdays. I think that's the kind of thing that could go a long way with the hardcore community. And I've told Phil to his face that's what I would do. Like, I don't know if he's gonna, and I don't know what he's doing with that feedback. Like, all I can do is say thank you, Phil, for listening to me, and then it's up. He'll make his decision. Of course, I'm the last guy that has any pull at Xbox, but
he listens. He listens
does listen. That's where you have to give Phil a lot of credit. He does. He is always listening.
Well, here's a funny thing, because we got to talk to him a couple E3s ago, had an interview with him, and we brought up then about the original plan for the Xbox One and, the family sharing, the game sharing. I asked him then, will this come back? And he just said, hey, they're still talking about and they're trying to figure out the best way to implement it. I think bringing that back would be huge. See, and that's one thing I think that was lost in the messaging. We're not trying to harp on the mistakes that they made, but that was the one thing that if they could have got the messaging correct at launch, people, if they understood it, how amazing that could be. Because if we could have that family sharing and we're trading games back and forth and all that, I mean, it's what we want in this digital age. Why not? So that's what I would love to see coming at the C3.
Strong call. Could not agree more. Yeah, and you're right. That was the what you couldn't do with the Xbox became the story rather than what you could do with the Xbox One. So I think you're totally 100% correct. And yeah, if that sort of came back, that could go a long way towards getting people fired up.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, they could announce that with the new hardware. Who knows?
It's possible.
It's possible, man.
Well,
now,
I'm sorry,
for it.
Danny, but so again, just sticking with E3 coming up and all that, just look, we know Gears of War 4 is their flagship title. What are some other games coming on the Xbox that you're looking forward to?
Well, it's looking like, I mean, we're at the beginning of May already as we record this, so I can't imagine Microsoft is going to be showcasing Sea of Thieves or Crackdown or Recore or some of these other games in the next, between now and E3. It's pretty clear to me, just by virtue of looking at the calendar, that all of this stuff is going to get held for E3. So Sea of Thieves was my number one most favorite thing out of E3 last year, certainly out of the Microsoft conference, because just the potential that 2 or 3 minute trailer showed for me was off the charts. So I will be very curious to see what that game really is. I expect that to be shown. Same thing, it'll be great to see Crackdown. They did show it at Gamescom last year, but that was sort of a multiplayer it was kind of a rough tech demo from my understanding. I wasn't actually there, but I would hope and think that some Crackdown single player would get shown. Of course, Gears, I want to see that single player because the reveal at E3 last year, and I told Rod this, I had Rod Ferguson on my show a week or two ago. I told him, that it didn't really move me the way I wanted it to. So I'll be curious to see what they show of Gears 4 single player. We still don't even know what Recore is. Like that trailer from last year was very intriguing, but it didn't really tell us what kind of game it is. So I expect that to be a question that's answered. We haven't seen Halo Wars 2. Like all of these things were announced and they were cool announcements at E3 last year, and they literally haven't been seen since. So I think this year is where all that stuff gets shown for real.
Now, I want to go back to Sea of Thieves, but before I just want to call back to that interview you did do with Rod Ferguson and give you guys kudos, because I loved how candid he was being, like just explaining things, why they weren't bringing Marcus Phoenix forward, just why they're trying to get back to some of the elements of the original Gears of War, but at the same time, take the lessons learned from Gears 2 and Gears 3 and bring those forward into Gears 4 as well. So again, just kudos on that. But going back to Sea of Thieves, do you think this is going to be Rare's redemption? And just really quick, I'm a Rare fan. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, obviously people our age, are fans of Rare with all the games that they've given us over the years. And when they kind of got shuttered into being the Connect studio, and when they were doing whatever the icons were, I can't even remember their names anymore. Yeah, the avatars, when they were doing those. And like, I say it every year, I want a banjo game. Just give me a banjo game. I want that. But if we're not getting that, do you think the Sea of Thieves can be the thing that puts Rare back on the map as being a top tier developer?
Oh, it absolutely can be. If it fulfills that potential that I was talking about earlier, it absolutely can be that. I mean, this is a game, because it's I can't say for sure because I haven't seen the game, but from everything from that bit that was shown, plus the follow-up things that Microsoft has said about that game, it appears to be a Destiny-like game on an infrastructure level. I'm talking about, a kind of shared world game, PvE, you and your friends against mostly against AI. There'll probably be some PvP stuff in there too, but where it is an always online situation in one world. So it's and of course Destiny is enormous, and the division has only reinforced the idea that people love these kinds of games, these sort of persistently living, breathing games that aren't MMOs in the traditional MMO sense, but they have some of those qualities. So if Sea of Thieves is good and it actually lives up to the potential that trailer showed, I think that could be a huge hit for Microsoft.
And plus an exclusive too. Which is good.
Certainly on the Xbox and PC side.
Yeah, definitely. Now, one thing I have you on Twitter and stuff, and I noticed one of your last tweets right before the recording. You talked about that you were kind of frustrated with the whole ID at Xbox Game Fest.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to talk about it more on your podcast, but what was that about?
Honestly, I read that and went because the first thing I saw was a couple people tweeted it at me like, "Oh, look at this! It looks like Phil is listening." And I looked at it and I went, "Well, it's not really Summer of Arcade. It sort of takes a little inspiration from it." And it's okay. They're trying to shine a light on the ID titles in a kind of organized way. Like, okay, we're in the month of May. We're going to do things week by week, but it's mostly games that are already out. It's not new things. It's like, okay, here's some old games. Here's some free games. Here's some preview program games. And then, okay, there's a couple new ones in there too. So I just feel like that's a baby step forward, but that just in no way addresses it just doesn't solve the problem of really bringing the best of the digital titles to the front. I mean, I guess it's meant to highlight the good ones that are already out, but I still think they need a regular schedule, which they don't have, and they need at all. And they need a better dashboard presence. I just think this is, and maybe this is on purpose. Maybe it is by design the first step in a larger plan. But since we can only see what's out there today's announcement as we record this, it to me, it just kind of, I shrugged my shoulders and went, okay, that's, you've taken one step now, but let's keep going here.
Yeah, because that was the thing I used to be so excited about Xbox Live Arcade, the schedule every Wednesday, sometime maybe Friday they will release something too.
Yeah.
But now it's like all over the place. Like
you literally don't know.
Exactly. So I don't know.
And they don't even tell you what the games are. It's not it's not as if there's no schedule, or it's not as if the games come out any day, but they'll be like, well, next week it's this, and this. It's just nothing. They just drop out of nowhere, and I just don't think it's doing gamers any favors, and I don't think it's doing the developers of these games any favors.
But I mean, let's see. Hopefully, in the future, they make some changes, have them a schedule, like you said. That'll be awesome. At the same time, too, by them not having a name as arcade, they just call it Xbox games, Xbox One games. You think that kind of not helped the situation, or what?
That is what I think, because back with Live Arcade, the digital purchasing situation was very different, where retail games, $60 retail games, were retail games. They mostly, at that point, for most of the 360's life, weren't on the Xbox marketplace where the $15 Live Arcade games were. Now, every game, every Halo 5, every Gears of War 4, the biggest budget games and the smallest budget indie titles share the exact same digital storefront. And thus, it's going to be really, really hard for those smaller but really interesting indie titles to stand out, because of you got these 800-pound gorillas in the same room with you. So that's why I think that Live Arcade logically has a place on the Xbox One and on Xbox Live. Give them their own, give it its own dashboard place, give it its own home, highlight them, curate them, put them on a regular schedule, and then I know where to find them. Instead, I go to prepare Podcast Unlocked every week, and right before we go on the air, I go to MajorNelson.com and I scroll back through, okay, let me just figure out what games that no one's ever heard of are dropping this week. And it's frustrating, because as an Xbox fan, I want these things to be, known, and I want them to be highlighted, but they're just not.
Well, yeah, before we let you go, Ryan, I'd kick myself if I didn't bring this up. I'm literally staring at it right now. That Podcast Unlocked you did, number 201, with Phil Spencer, Peter Moore, and Seamus Blackley. How freaking cool was that?
So that is, I want this to sound, I assure you I'm 100% humble when I say this. Like that is the single proudest moment of my career so far. Like that is if I were to retire tomorrow, or if I were to die tomorrow, because I'm not retiring, so like that would be the thing that would be at the very top of the list of things that I've been very lucky enough to work on and do in my 13 and a half years in this career of working in games media. That was really just I can't believe it came together, and I can't believe that it happened and it worked and people actually watched it. I mean, I'm just so happy to have been able to do that. It was really just the highlight of my career.
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, just as a viewer watching it, again, you did a fantastic job on that, by the way, but how candid they were being, especially Peter Moore, just talking about the Red Ring of Death and just how much, Steve Ballmer was involved in that and having to give the green light, like, yep, we're going to do it. I don't care how much it costs. In other words, Microsoft, we're invested in the Xbox brand. We're not going to let this die because of faulty hardware. And just even, Seamus Blackley obviously talking about the fact that it was green just by happenstance. It wasn't like a planned thing. Or even Phil Spencer just talking about the early days, with the various studios and development and all that. It was just like things that never even occurred to me came up during that podcast. And like I said, they all three were just being so candid. It was amazing. Like I said, if you did retire or drop the mic at that point, that's probably one of the best video game podcasts I've ever heard. It really was good.
That's the thing. I think too often, and for good reason. I mean, I think a lot of times people don't see Xbox fans just see Xbox as this monolithic thing, as this sort of it's like this entity, a corporation unto itself. But yeah, it's like it turns out there's just a bunch of really interesting people that built it all, and it was really cool to get of them to be so forthcoming with some of the interesting stories that went into the making of all three Xboxes.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites too, man. So the props to you, Ryan, for making that happen. And by the way, how long it took you to make that happen, though? Very quick.
So I had the idea. This is, I guess, a little inside baseball behind the scenes. I had the idea in like January of that year, and so I started reaching out. One of them came on board right away. One of them took a little convincing, and then the other one came on after I kind of got the other two, and then one of them almost pulled out at the last minute, which would have ruined the whole thing.
Ooh,
but somehow,
I think I know who it is.
I swear I know.
Somehow it came together, and then they all when they all showed up, because we shot it at night. We shot it the Wednesday of E3 last year, over at our sort of our E3 war room, which is an off-site studio facility in downtown LA. And they all, like, one by one, they all showed up, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is happening!" And then, like when we actually got going, like it was probably, I would say, 20 minutes into it. I had these pages of notes all in front of me. And the conversation's already going great. They're all, as you said, they're all just doing, they all had such a great rapport with each other. I'm sitting there thinking, I think this is really good. I was like, but I wasn't really going to be sure until it actually aired, but I had a really good feeling even as I was recording it.
Yeah, man. Props to you, though, man.
Thank you.
But Ryan, man, I just want to say, man, thanks for joining, this week's episode of Gamertag Radio, and hopefully you could join us again 9 years from now.
Yeah, maybe not quite that far. I mean, yeah. So I realized just over the course of our call here, I hope it didn't seem like I was being too negative. I get accused. It's funny. I get accused of hating Xbox, even though I do an Xbox show, because for some people, if I criticize Microsoft at all, I hate Xbox, or I'm paid off by Sony, or whatever it is they want to say. And then other people accuse me of being a total Xbox fanboy and going along, with anything. So I guess you can't please everybody, but I will say, some of the sort of constructively critical things we talked about over the last, 45, 50 minutes, it's really because I do care so much about the Xbox brand, and I have been so invested in it over the last like 13 years. That's why, like, you know, I think that's where you can't have the good without the bad, right? Like you have to be able to be constructive about things. So hopefully I really feel like this is going to be a heck of an awesome year for Xbox between Gears and Halo Wars 2 and Cuphead, which I just saw again at PAX East. And, you know, there's just such a killer lineup. I really can't wait to play everything.
Yeah, Ryan, we hear that all the time, man, with our listeners. Oh, you guys are too negative, or we hear it all the time.
I just think that's just the common theme from gamers, because I think we're all so very passionate about this hobby that we have. And like you even said, it's like I'm very critical of Xbox, but I'm critical because I care. You know, I want to see them succeed. So when I see them screwing up, I'm going to say, hey, fix it. You know what I mean? So I just think it happens with anyone that's in this industry. So,
but hey, right, Parris, every time we have like Aaron and these guys on, they're cool, and they know, okay, the nice part of the show already just happened, and now it's going to go to the critical one. And you know what? They like that because, you know, that will motivate them to make the product even better. You know, so if everybody's just being, you know, all nice and giving great feedback all the time, how the product is going to get better in the future by doing that, you know? So
great point.
Yeah. Parris, you were saying something? I'll cut you off.
Well, you always cut me off, so it's nothing new. But no. I mean, that you said it pretty much, Ryan. I mean, that's all I'll say. I do have one last thing before you go.
Sure.
Again, I've been trying to catch up with you to talk to you for 10 years. So now that I got a chance, I got to get it all out. The Xbox 360, obviously, they just discontinued it. They're not going to make it anymore. And it's had this great, 10.5-year run at this point, I guess. In my personal opinion, I say it's probably the greatest console ever made just because of what it ushered in for gaming. I'm just curious your thoughts. What do you think about the legacy of the Xbox 360?
Wow. That's I think it's in the conversation for sure. I mean, the NES, I think even the Super NES is up there too. I mean, hell, the Game Boy Advance, like in its various iterations, the GBA was just an unbelievable platform. Of course, I mean, I really kind of missed the PS1 era because I was a PC gamer exclusively at that time. But I mean, the PS2 is clearly in the mix as well. I mean, I think it's definitely in the conversation. I mean, you talk about. Of course, bringing everybody into the HD era and live arcade and all the really great first-party exclusives it had, and third-party exclusives too. I don't know. I mean, gun to my head, I don't know what I would say, but it would definitely be in the top 3 for me for sure. At worst, it really was just an unbelievable console, just loaded with incredible software support. I mean, it was the first console that had a dashboard that evolved over time. We'd never seen that before. So many things that it did do first, and it did do so well. And that's why I think it's not a coincidence that a lot of the sort of repair work that's been going on with the Xbox One by Microsoft has involved rolling a lot of things back to the way they were with 360 because they were so good.
Yeah, exactly.
Party chat and all this kind of stuff. So yeah. It's definitely in the top 3. I'm gonna at least go with you that far.
No, that's very obviously it's a very subjective answer. It's up to opinion. Yeah, I just say it for the simple fact that it brought so many people that are still in my life today because of that box and the community that surrounded it. And obviously, you look at games like Halo 3 and the original Gears, and obviously the way Xbox Live just advanced online gaming in general. It's just, it was an amazing time during
favorite 360 game ever. Parris, go pick one game. Desert Island 360 right now.
Oof, that's a couple, man.
Because you're putting me on the spot, and I know I'm going to get off of this and not remember the other game. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with Halo 3.
All right. That's a solid call. Extremely defensible. Great game. Danny, your turn, man.
Let's see.
The gun is at your head.
I think, oh my God, that's a hard one, man. I think, because of the time when the first time seeing it, the trailer for the first time at E3, Gears of War, the first one.
Yep.
Amazing. And RPG, I'll go with Lost Odyssey. I love that one.
Oh,
love
nice pick. I like that.
I love that game so much. Yes. What about you?
You know, I was thinking about it as I was asking the question, and you know what? I think I would go with Mass Effect 1. Just
see, yeah, I can't argue that. That's what I mean. Yeah.
The incredible story, great gameplay. A little technically rough around the edges, particularly by today's standards, but just it really was a space opera. This epic role playing game. I really think that's probably my favorite 360 game.
If I can cheat, because I'm going to cheat now that you bring that up.
It's your show. You can do whatever you want.
And I'm not even talking about the full game. If you remember when that BioShock demo came out on Xbox One, on Xbox Live, I thought that was the greatest thing ever. I was like, I cannot wait to get a hold of this final game. I thought that was one of the best demos ever created. And if I have a lasting memory from the 360, it was listening like to the Major Nelson podcast, and they were talking about this demo, and I downloaded it and played it, and I thought this was going to be amazing. And then final game came out. I would say 75% of it was fantastic. Last 25, not so much. But, we're here nor there. But there's so many games that you could bring up on the 360. Yeah. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer for sure. But yeah, amazing system. So just had to get that out.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Nah, but Ryan, once again, man, I just want to say thanks, man. And, anytime you want to hang out, let us know. We always see you at E3. You got to take a break, man. I always see you working.
You got to take a break. That's the thing. That's what I got to do at E3. I gotta hustle. I got to do it. I got to get out there, interview the Phil Spencers of the world, and be making podcasts and appointments. And hopefully we'll pass each other in the halls, because I don't stop during E3. I gotta go into Terminator mode at E3.
Definitely, man. Definitely. But hopefully we'll see you there, man. And stay in touch, man. Whenever
Absolutely.
You want to join us.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thank you.
A lot.
Take it out.
You're listening to Gamertag Radio.
All right, we're back here, Gamertag Radio, episode 564. Parris, I love the interview. It was dope. Yeah, Ryan's cool too, man. Like, we know him, so it was a great interview. I had a great time with that, man. So shout out to Ryan for joining us for this recording. Parris, are you there?
No, I'm here.
I thought you were going to say.
I thought you were going to say something else. So I was like, I'm going to just stay quiet. No, I completely agree. I mean, great interview with Ryan, and really enjoyed getting a chance to talk to him, and just obviously went through all the stuff with E3. We talked about everything currently with Xbox. We talked about the Xbox 360. Even that great interview he did with Seamus, Peter Moore, and I almost said Don Matrick.
Wow.
I almost said Don Matrick.
Wow.
With Phil Spencer. I'm sorry, Phil. And look, Aaron Greenberg, since you're listening to this, because you say you listen to every episode, link Phil to this so he can hear it too.
There you go. All right. So we're going to wrap it up, man. Head over to gamertagradio.com, play.it/gamertag. You can find us there and share with your friends. Also, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio. We're everywhere. Plus, in other podcast directories, just search for Gamertag Radio. Give us a call, 786-273-7GTR. That's 786-273-7GTR. Or email us at fanmail@gamertagradio.com. Remember, if you can't call the voicemail, you can record from your device, your phone, your PC, Mac, and send it to our email, and we'll definitely play on the show. So we've been getting emails from all over the world. Now, I think that would be cool to get more messages from everybody else, man. So keep it up. Anything else, Parris? We'll wrap it up.
No, I think that's it.
All right. Hey, by the way, by the time you guys listen to this, Captain America: Civil War. Woo, can't wait. That's it for me. and I'll see you next time. We are out. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Gamertag Radio. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.